What's going on, guys? It's Fight Season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about of how Leon Edwards' title defenses and his title reign wasn't genuinely as impressive as I thought it was, and I don't think Leon Edwards is as good of a fighter as he truly thinks he is, or that we all thought he is as a champion. Leon Edwards got exposed yesterday by Belal Muhammad, and we have to 100% give Belal Muhammad his flowers. He went in there with the perfect game plan and absolutely demolished Leon Edwards in rounds 1, 2, and 4. I did think Leon Edwards did get those 2 rounds, 3 and 5, but Belal Muhammad ended up winning that fight. But Leon Edwards did not have a great title reign. Yes, he had 2 defenses, but I don't think those defenses were as high criteria or higher caliber as we truly thought that they were. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. 97.2% of my viewers who watch my videos are not subscribed, so please don't be one of those 97.2% of my viewers. Please go down there and hit the subscribe button just so you guys can always show support to the channel. Let's get right into the video of why I think Leon Edwards' title defenses wasn't as good as everyone thought they were. Okay, so I want to start off kind of briefly about why I believe that Leon Edwards' title defenses aren't as impressive as we thought it was, and then I want to step into why I believe Leon Edwards isn't as good of a fighter as we truly believe. When Leon Edwards won the belt, he was losing that fight to Kamaru Usman pretty handily. I think he got the first round versus Usman. He was getting kind of controlled a little bit. He was getting jabbed on, but he was able to get Usman's back in the first round to control that round. He then dropped 2, 3, 4 to win. Then his coach had to tell him to, the old famous line, you got to do all this rock, you got to do everything, and then get the head kick. And Leon Edwards ended up getting the head kick after John Eddick said, this fighter's not the cloth of which he is cut. One of the most insane moments of all time. But Leon Edwards, we all forget, was losing that fight. We all look to the head kick as one of the craziest knockouts of all time in the UFC organization, but Leon Edwards was losing that fight pretty handily, and that is something that a lot of people overlook. And what was Leon Edwards' next fight? And that was Kamaru Usman the third time, because they fought once back in 2015. Kamaru Usman ended up getting the win. The second fight that they had was that fight where Leon Edwards had the head kick KO. And then the third fight, I don't think Kamaru Usman was the same fighter coming back, because that was a pretty quick turnaround. That was August of 2022 into late March of 2023, and that's a very quick turnaround considering the type of brain damage Kamaru Usman took in that fight. He got absolutely knocked out cold. His toes were flinching because of the inactivity, or the irregular brain activity, the electrical pulses, and a bunch of other stuff like that. And we've only seen Kamaru Usman fight one other time. That was against Khamzat Chimaev on 10 days' notice. But Kamaru Usman, I don't think, was the same fighter. I think Leon Edwards beat him handily because Kamaru Usman was not the same fighter. I think Prime Usman goes in there and does his work against Leon Edwards. And then in his next fight, he had Colby Covington. Colby Covington looked awful in that fight. Colby Covington fought last at, I think it was 2023 in March. It was at UFC 272. It was 2022 in March, my fault. And it was an absolute awful showing from Colby Covington. The fact that he went into that fight at the end and said he lost because he was a Trump supporter was absolutely abysmal, because the reason that Colby Covington lost was because of how awful he looked inside the octagon. Now, Leon Edwards was kind of toying around with an amateur in there almost, because Colby Covington looked that bad. He didn't have any aggression. I think Colby understood that, he was there to make money, not win the fight, and that was something that was truly shown pretty quickly in that fight. Colby was getting beaten up pretty bad, but it wasn't like he was taking some crazy shots. Yes, he was a little, had some bruises and stuff like that, but I would have bruises if I went in there against Leon Edwards. But Colby didn't get knocked out in that fight, which was something that I think Leon really should have had the opportunity to do. He had 5 rounds of complete domination to where he was pattering Colby Covington the entire fight, and he could have gone for the takedown, or he could have gone for the finish, my fault, multiple different times. And in this fast fight, he fought Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad has been an upcoming fighter for the past 5 or so years. Belal Muhammad, we all know his story with Leon Edwards, of how that was in the middle of a 10-fight win streak coming into this fight. And he went in there and showed that he just genuinely had more heart than Leon Edwards. And that is something, looking at a champion, that is absolutely insane to see. Now, we all know Belal Muhammad isn't the most exciting fighter inside the UFC, and I wish he wasn't the champion for that, but Belal Muhammad is a good fighter, and there's nothing you can take away from him being a good fighter. He genuinely has these skills, he has the grappling ability, and no one wants to admit that he's that good because of how boring he is to watch fight, and I didn't want to admit of how good he is truly, but seeing him last night, of how he always kind of, when he shoots, he always goes for the double leg, but he also just kind of clasps hands under the butt, kind of just to see. It's like how you would pick up your kid. It's the exact same thing. You grab under the butt, pick it up, and it's really easy to do so in that standpoint. And Belal Muhammad kind of get that down pat to where in that fight, he wasn't really necessarily shooting to get a single leg or a double leg. It wasn't a true double leg because he was kind of just going up for a slam. He had the hands locked together in a way that was just had one hand kind of over in the top, clenching fingers, which was a way to easily get that in turn. But Belal Muhammad, most surprisingly, did pretty decent in stand-up, and I think that was because of the grappling threat at hand. But Leon Edwards genuinely looked... I don't know how he looked last night because he, at the end of the fight, he was winning that last 30 seconds of that fight because he understood that he had to get the finish. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, Leon, you've had so much time to get this finish, and you decide that now is the greatest time to ultimately get that finish right then. At the end of the round, that time that ultimately you can't get back. Too little, too late. And it was truly something bad to see. Now, why I think Leon Edwards is a worse fighter than I previously thought he was, like I said, going back to these title defenses, he lost to Belal Muhammad, who I think is a good fighter, lost to Colby Covington, who was washed, lost to Usman, or beat Usman twice, beat Covington, and then beat Usman twice, beat Usman after the very short layoff after that head kick, only beat Usman off one of the craziest head kicks that we've ever seen, and that was an impressive performance, but that wasn't necessarily a dominant performance from Edwards. He then beat Nick Diaz, who, I'm going to be honest, isn't the greatest caliber of fighter. He beat Rafael dos Anjos, who Rafael has looked awful these last times. He beat Gunnar Nelson, which isn't really a big thing. He beat Donald Cerrone in 2018. That's a pretty good win. But these fights show that his rise to the title was good, but he ultimately was beating fighters to get pushed up into the rankings that weren't at the best in their prime. And yes, Rafael dos Anjos then was a better fighter than he is now, but still that isn't the most impressive win compared to someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov, who submitted Wonderboy, and Shavkat Rakhmonov, who beat Jeff Neal by finish. I look at some of these fighters who are coming up in the rankings, like JDM's win over Gilbert Burns was a very good win. Even though he was getting beaten for most of that fight, he showed that toughness and whatnot to then ultimately get the finish. And it's not like JDM, yes, comparing him to Belal Muhammad, or I meant Leon Edwards, it's not like JDM has gone this entire time. JDM has been getting finishes over opponents that have truly been, big. He got that Gilbert Burns finish. He got the Randy Brown finish, and the Kevin Holland fight wasn't that exciting, but JDM is a very technical striker, and I think he's a better, higher IQ fighter than Leon Edwards at this point, because I don't think Leon wanted to be in there with Belal, especially since after that takedown happened so quick, so fast, and so early. I think Leon Edwards understood that he was outmatched pretty quickly, and he kind of gave up into that fight until later on in that third round. He understood he could get the back, and it was just a little bit too little, too late. But ultimately, Leon Edwards is going to be in the top. He's going to be the number one ranked fighter in the UFC welterweight division and no longer the champion. And I think the perfect fight to either make for Leon Edwards is Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena, or Leon Edwards versus Ian Gary, either one that you do. And out of those two, whichever one doesn't get Leon Edwards, I think you give Kamaru Usman, JDM, or Ian Gary. I think that makes the most sense for me. You give Shavkat the title shot because, Usman doesn't deserve it. Belal is the champion, and Leon just lost. I think the next ultimate shot to do is Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Belal Muhammad, and I think that is the best thing to do right now in the UFC welterweight division, and I just don't think that Leon Edwards' title reign was as impressive as a lot of people are making out it to be, and truly as impressive as I thought it was, because looking back at it, beating Usman the third time was a very short layoff, beating Colby, who was washed, and then getting in there with a very hungry fighter in Belal Muhammad really showed Leon Edwards' weaknesses. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know about my take about Leon Edwards' title reign not being as impressive as previously thought. I truly don't think that fighting Kamaru Usman the third time and getting that win after a very short layoff for Usman after that knockout and beating Colby Covington truly validate Leon Edwards of being one of the greatest welterweights of all time. I still think Usman's better than him, still think possibly Woodley's better than him, and still think GSP is obviously better than him. But Belal Muhammad has such a long time to reign his title. I do think he could possibly lose to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I'm going to get into that very soon with another video talking about potential Belal Muhammad opponents and of how he stacks up. But ultimately, Belal Muhammad is now the champ and Leon Edwards is not. If you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribing is the best way to show support to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so please go down there and hit that subscribe button. And I will see you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.